Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar, The Science of Retaining Customers in Financial Services and Insurance. We are really looking forward to sharing our approach to customer retention, which we see as the next evolution of customer experience. But first, a quick introduction to who we are. I am Margot Burbeck and head up the Incuba Australia team, and I'm joined today by Incuba co-founder and journey pioneer Trent Rossini. Incuba is a customer experience and journey management software service provider, and what we do is optimize acquisition, retention, and upsell across the customer journey with our unique approach that uses experiential and operational data. Just a bit of housekeeping, there will be a handout available through the webinar platform, as well as a Q&A session at the end of the session. Please do submit questions during the webinar, and we'll answer those at the end. And also please engage with us on Twitter and social media using #JoinTheJourney. Today we are going to focus on customer retention, a big topic for customer experience professionals and marketers. And what we really see is that businesses that are most successful in terms of a predictable formula for retaining customers can demonstrate this through metrics such as attrition rates and customer lifetime value. And you may be measuring some of those yourselves. Once we are then able to retain customers, getting new customers becomes much easier as your existing customers become your brand advocates. So in today's webinar, we'll share our formula for successfully retaining customers. And really to start off with the key question that we want to ask, and probably the reason or what led you to join the session today is, why is customer retention becoming more and more difficult? And we don't need to go too far to answer this question. I think the first myth is that we believe that we are in control of our customers' journey, but this is not the case. Our customers are absolutely in control. And when we can understand and accept this, it becomes a lot easier to design our retention strategies and strategies that will really work. The first key point is that customers have choice. So in Australia, customers have many, many options when it comes to financial services products. We've got more than 1,000 deposit products, 4,000 different home loan products, 200 business loans, and 157 credit cards on offer. The second thing is customers are highly motivated. And we need to believe that customers are actively looking for better deals on their finance products. So even when your customers are satisfied with your service, people still want reduced rates, and they'll really go out of the way to seek better options. Then what makes matters even worse is that it's never been easier for customers to switch providers. And we can see this in the last 3 years, 3 million Australians switched bank accounts. So really, retention is becoming more and more difficult because customers have so many more options. They're motivated to look for different options, and it's very easy for them to do that. So not only have our customers changed, but our institutions have changed as well. And we just need to think about the old way of banking, where we had a local branch and a bank manager who may have recorded balances in little books, to think how the world has changed. And we can contrast this with the complexity of today's customers' journeys. So today customers have so many channel options available to them, and they channel hop, and they often use more than one channel at a time. So they're having to navigate infinitely more complex products while interacting with businesses through more channels than ever before. So really what this all means is that digitalization has changed everything. So in the next slide, I'm going to share an example of a bank that has completely reinvented banking, and in the context of health. So this is Discovery, who is one of Incuba's clients in South Africa. So what does all of this mean for executives with customers in control and mass digital disruption and really only set to increase? Well, the business case for retaining customers has been well proven. For example, we know that it costs 5 times as much to attract a new customer than it does to keep an existing one. The probability of selling to an existing customer is 60% as opposed to 5% probability of selling to new customers. And this is quite surprising then that 44% of customers have a greater focus on acquisition than the 18% focused on retention. So there really is an opportunity for effective customer retention to support business growth. But how do we retain customers? This is really what we would like to share with you today. Incuba advocates a systemic journey management approach to retaining customers for life. And a journey approach really means managing customer experiences across the entire customer journey rather than at single touch points or interactions. And I've used a simple illustration over here to explain. So customers have journeys, as we can see in this example. And at the end of their journeys, they either achieve their goals or they don't. So they could renew, or potentially if they've had really great journeys, they'll advocate for us, but they may also cancel or switch to another provider. But really, by the time they've got to this end point, it's probably too late to retain that customer. They've likely already signed a contract with somebody else. And if we look at our journey maps, we could probably say we do a pretty good job in journey mapping and possibly measuring satisfaction across the journey. However, the way we see it is that customers actually have journeys that look very different. So, for example, they hit roadblocks, they get stuck, they may go off track, and often our conceptual ideas of customer journeys don't include all of those potential negative paths. So Incuba's approach to journey management really starts with the actual customer journeys. And then what we want to do is overlay experience and sentiment measures across the journey. So that enables us to see which paths lead customers to retention, and then we know where to focus our efforts. And then what we want to do in terms of customer retention is to profile customers across their journey. So this means risk profiling to be able to identify and prevent customer churn. And this is what Trent will show you in more detail in the demo that will follow. So our approach, which is a scientific approach to customer retention, would really start with profiling customers. So this is creating a single view of customer, both at a transactional and at a relationship level. And we could do this by linking all available data, such as interaction data and attitudinal data. And then we want to systemically create an at-risk score for each of our customers. The next step we would want to do is to analyze customer behaviors and profiles. So that really gives us an understanding of what's driving retention in each of our businesses. And then with an understanding of what causes customers to stay with us or leave, we are then able to identify risk triggers. So these could be events such as a customer calling the contact center to nominate a new financial advisor, or make an inquiry about interest rates or payment plans. And once we know what the triggers are, we want to then design service interventions, which could be an operational process, for example, such as an immediate customer callback, or maybe it's an improvement to a specific experience design. And then we'd want to have a continuous loop of improvement. So check the impact of these actions or interventions, and then make sure we're continuously improving, and obviously that we're having a positive impact on our customer retention. Then lastly, I think companies who do get this right may implement more advanced data techniques. So using things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, which enables us to then proactively predict churn and then automate actions and interventions in real time. So this is our 4-step approach to systemically retain customers. I'm going to hand over to Anthony now to run a quick poll, and then Trent will share how Incuba helps its clients retain customers through our customer experience platform.
Thanks very much, Anthony, and thank you, Margot, for the great introduction. So Incuba operates across obviously the Australian market as well as South Africa and into the US market. We have a couple of clients in the UK market as well. And we operate along the lines of a couple of industries, very strong in the financial services and insurance sector, as well as telecoms, hospitality and lifestyle. And then from a retail point of view, we're quite active in that particular market. So obviously, that's given us a lot of opportunity to interact with a wide number of clients. We're very fortunate to be recognized by both Forrester in terms of the work that we're doing, as well as Gartner. And most recently, if you've had any interaction with Incuba, you would have received a communication from us just highlighting the recognition that we got from Gartner in terms of the latest Voice of Customer Solution Market Guide, where we were rated 3 out of 3 across 3 important areas, so reporting and analytics, customer journeys, and professional services. So certainly very fortunate to have that recognition in the market. So what I'd like to do as we are kicking off is really to talk about the approach that we adopt in terms of managing and understanding customer journeys. And it really starts off with a very simple principle, which is using base data to understand end-to-end customer journeys. And it's not just similar to the situation of tracking out a path a GPS path. If any of you are athletes and use, for instance, any of the Garmin or Fitbit technologies, you'll know that through having your X and Y coordinates, you can understand a lot about a customer. And we do something very similar. The difference with the Incuba approach is that we really need to know 3 pieces of information about a customer journey. We need to know the transaction name, for argument's sake, that they called the call center. We need to know the time that that interaction took place. And obviously, lastly, we need to know the individual that was involved in that particular interaction. Once we've got that information, what we can do is we can start to plot out the information and actually connect each one of those different elements together. And it gives us a view of the path that a customer is actually transversing across as they're interacting with your organization. Now, when your end customers are interacting with your organization, in this case, we've got an example of Bob, John, and Mark. Ultimately, they're going about interacting with your organization with the intent of achieving a particular goal. We also know that these individuals are people with backgrounds. They're obviously emotional individuals that are making decisions. They're interacting with your brand. And it's really important to understand the profile of those customers in terms of their interaction with the organization. And particularly today, as we're talking about retention, we want to understand when those customers are getting off track and they're not actually meeting the particular goals in the way that they're interacting with the organization. So the power of journey management is quite significant. The first point is that unlike traditional voice of the customer, we can get a view of all customers and not just a sample, and we can understand the steps that those customers are taking towards their particular goal. We can also get then obviously a visualization of the customer's path, and customer journey management actually allows us to look at dead ends and loops. So when customers are getting off track and not actually meeting their goals, which ultimately hopefully are aligned to your goals as a corporate organization. And then very importantly, we can nudge them along through very contextual real-time engagements because we have that full background. So if we go back to what Margot spoke about, there's really a 4-step process, should I say, starting off with profiling of customers, moving towards analyzing and understand, and then acting, responding, engaging, and improving, and then predict, automate, and orchestrate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through each one of those and give you a view of how each one of those steps is actually executed using the Incuba platform. So let's start off by talking about the customer and the background. Now, a very important principle that we adopt within the Incuba platform is that we plot out the customer journey, and we have 2 broad approaches. One is to plot out the ideal customer journey and to map and measure insights against that. And the second is then to keep track of the actionable customer journey using transactional data. So when we're talking about plotting out the ideal journey, what we want to do is we want to associate insights from customers at different points within the customer journey, as well as associating insights in terms of unstructured text. So one of the key capabilities of the Incuba platform is the fact that we do have text analytics that's associated with different parts of the customer journey. What we're then able to do is we're able to use all of that information and actually represent the end-to-end customer journey. So I'm going to just quickly swap over and give you a view of some of these elements at play within the customer platform. So over here we have a customer journey in terms of an insurer. You'll see that from a modeling point of view, we've got the brand metric at the highest level. So that would be measuring metrics such as retention loyalty or a recommendation loyalty. That translates to the very popular Net Promoter Score. And then we can break that down into things like the journey satisfaction, the level of comfort in terms of the price and the product. And the journey in turn can be broken down into different elements. So here we're looking at, for argument's sake, purchasing, then administering, claiming, and renewing. And if we go right into a particular detailed area of the claiming, we can then map down to the actual quality attributes of overall satisfaction and customer effort, which is now associated with the lodgement. And we see as well that there's actually been a text analytics query that has been associated with this particular node. So we can go and have a look at all customers that are, for instance, lodging or submitting a claim. And that means that if we receive some unstructured information and the system doesn't know quite where to put it, the text analytics would then anchor that particular point to this point in the customer journey. So what we're then able to do is we are able to get a view of the organization in terms of all of those queries coming in, and then we can start to look at the overall performance of the organization in terms of its ability to deliver against each one of those particular themes. So we're going to look at the insurance theme over here, and we can see all of the text analytics queries that have been pulled together. So for instance, we're getting a lot of comments around claims, and in turn we can then break it down. We can look at positive queries, negative, neutral queries. So let's go further into negative queries, and then what we can do is we can start seeing any of the customers that are having a poor experience with regards to claims, and we can get to the underlying items over there. So that's really the first part of the equation, is to understand the customer journey and to model the customer journey using what we call the customer experience model, or the SEM model. And that typically represents the first evolution in terms of understanding end-to-end customer journeys. We can take that a step further, and what we're able to do is we can then start to overlay those insights using journey analytics, and we can start linking that together and representing that in terms of a data view of the end-to-end customer journey. And we do that really by combining two kinds of data. First of all, we've got our transactional data, and typically that transactional data will come from external systems. So this, for instance, would be information that's flowing from the underlying line of business system, such as the claim system or administration system, and we can link those to the end-to-end customer journey. And then we can overlay some of the measurement or qualitative data, such as feedback from surveys, such as qualitative feedback, which we get from text analytics, that goes all the way to social media. And then we have a very special kind of transaction. We refer to that as an elapsed transaction. In other words, no further action has happened. So what we're looking for is we're looking for instances where a customer has no longer progressed. And that actually gives us an insight in terms of the fact that a customer potentially has got stuck along their journey and an intervention is necessary. So all of that information can be then plotted into the Incuba platform, and we can get a view of how those elements fit together. Now, what is a key underlying enabler is obviously a single view of the customer, because we have a customer that might be interacting, for instance, through social media. That customer might be interacting through a line of business system. They might be interacting online through a website. And what we do is we take all of that information, we combine that information, and we link together and build up a profile of the customer. And if that customer is represented in different channels by different identifiers, we're able to link those together to get that single view of the end-to-end customer. We also have integration into Full Contact, which is a third-party service that allows linking across email addresses and social media. And through that, what we can do is we can then build up a end-to-end view of the customer journey. So again, going back into the Incuba platform, what I'm going to do is we have a view over here in terms of a particular customer. This customer is Charlotte Weaver, and we can get all of her contact details. This has been built up over a period of time based on transactions flowing into the system. And then what we can do is we can start looking at Charlotte from the point of view of particular themes that she as an individual is talking about. So here we have the end-to-end customer journey that you saw earlier. And we can see, in fact, that Charlotte has been through the claims process, and she's had some problems in terms of delays. And we can see those themes coming through. So we have some issues with claims and timelessness coming through. We can see that as a quality attribute that is a concern. What we can see further is if we actually look at Charlotte as an individual, you'll see that the system has actually flagged Charlotte as being at risk. So she's actually posted a particular comment over here and said that your company lacks professional service. and she's had some problems with the claims process. So you can see how we've pulled all of that information together to get a single view of the customer. We can also, using our single view capability, what we're able to do is we're able to look at all of the activity. So we can see, for instance, the claims that have been submitted by that particular individual, and we can see all of the interactions that we've actually subsequently had with her in terms of sending communications, or potentially any of the communications that Charlotte has sent into our demo system, into a company called Transatlantic. It's a fictitious company that we use in terms of demonstrating the capabilities. We can also then talk directly to Charlotte from within the platform, and we can have a conversation with that customer across multiple channels, and you can actually have predefined templates in terms of the interaction with Charlotte. So that gives you a very rough sense of how we're using a variety of different information to actually understand the world of an individual, in this case Charlotte, and using that to plot out the end-to-end customer journey. So once you've started to connect all of that information together, and you've got a sense of what is happening in a particular customer's world, you can start to analyze and actually understand the end-to-end customer journey. And we provide very rich analytics to be able to do that. So what we are able to do is pull all of the information together and then start to understand the end-to-end customer journey. We have very rich analytics that gives us a strong sense of exactly what is happening in the world of a particular individual. So just give you a quick sense of how that plays out in the platform. We can start to understand the key issues within an organization and get an end-to-end view of the customer journey, which then combines both structured and unstructured information and allows us to get a sense of where the issues are in the organization and where we should be putting in our efforts in order to retain a particular customer. What we're also able to do is using that text view, and I had shown you this a little bit earlier, we're able to identify customers that potentially are at risk. And then what we're able to do is we can actually set up rules to interact with a particular customer. So if we pick up, for instance, that a customer is at risk, we can interact with them either manually using the single view functionality I showed earlier, or alternatively, what we're able to do is put automated communications together to engage with customers. We've used this approach. One of our customers, MyWay, had a program that was put in place, and they managed to retain 57% of identified at-risk customers, which obviously helps overall with managing the retention rate for an insurer or any other financial institution. So once that the customer is really understood from a macro point of view, the next part of the process is to actually start understanding the customer more detailed level. And if we use the more advanced journey mapping capabilities, what we're able to actually do is we're able to then apply filters to our end-to-end customer journey. So let's swap back into the Incuba platform and give you a quick sense of how that plays out. So here we have a different example. In this particular case, we're looking at Transatlantic Bank, and we're looking at the customer journey that customers have gone through in terms of customers taking up an offer associated with a credit card. So you can see that we have 1,679 customers that have put in an application. We can see 1,266 of those have been approved. Then we sent out 797 of those to end customers, and 681 in fact have opened up an email with promotion to spend, and obviously retain the customers around the interaction with that particular credit card. So if we wanted to now combine this customer journey with the single view, what we can do is we can start compare different customers. So let's take a very traditional scenario in terms of, for instance, comparing our promoters and detractors. And what we want to do is we're going to apply a filter to this particular insight, and we're going to get a sense of how customers that are promoters and detractors differ in their interaction behavior within Transatlantic Bank. So just applying a filter over there, then we can actually apply that analysis. So what the system does is, using the single view, it goes back and it starts to plot out the different customer journeys. So here we can see, for instance, a view of promoters, which are highlighted in orange, and detractors, which are highlighted in the gray. And we can see the customer journey. So you can see that obviously there's a subset of our overall customer base, because only some of the customers actually have answered these NPS questions. And we can start to see that obviously customers that are promoters are far more likely to actually go down the path of accepting the offer, interacting with opening the mail, and ultimately spending money. At the top path over here, we're seeing that the detractors are declining the offer for a variety of different reasons, sometimes for interest rates, sometimes for fees, sometimes for effort. And even if we put a revised offer in place, they don't necessarily interact with that. So it gives credibility to the whole idea that customers that are promoters, in other words, those that are positively predisposed to the brand, are in fact the customers that are most likely to take up offers and continue to use a particular product. It gives us a sense of exactly where the issues lie within the organization, and what we really should do. What we can do then is, using this analysis that I've just shown you, we can take things a little bit further, and we can actually create a target audience filter. So we go back to our customer path within the systems, and what we can do is we can actually select a customer path. So let's say we're going to target customers, for argument's sake, that have declined an offer. And what we're able to actually do is we're able to select those customers, actually build up a customer path of those particular customers. And what we can then do is we can create a target audience rule. So what the Incuba platform allows for us to actually do is create customers that have met certain criteria. And there's two ways of doing this. The one way is obviously to target customers in the past that have met certain criteria. The alternative way is then to create a view, a dynamic list of customers that meet those criteria in the future. So anyone that follows that particular path into the future will then be put into that particular target audience rule within the actual system itself. So that's a very powerful functionality to get a sense and actually start to manage the customer. The third part in the process is obviously what we want to do is we now want to do something quite active, and we actually want to start to engage with those particular customers. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our target selection and actually do one of two things, which is either to create a list within the system. And a list really is a list of customers that met a particular criteria. So going back to the system over here, the other option that we have available to us is that we can actually create a list of customers, and we can create a set of cases within the system that meet a particular set of criteria to actually engage with those particular customers. And those can be then routed to specialist agents within the environment to actually retain that particular customer. And using our case management capability, we're then able to prioritize those customers that meet certain criteria. This extends all the way into social media. So I mentioned earlier that what we're able to do is any of the unstructured text can be sent through the text processing capabilities of the Incuba platform, and then picking up on certain customers that are at risk. And we saw that earlier in terms of customers that meet certain criteria. For instance, customer that's frustrated, we can route that into the case management capability of the Incuba platform, and we can actually manage that. If we move away from person-to-person interaction, the next option that we have available to us is that we can start to send out more automated communications to customers, and we can use that single view that has now been built up to actually interact with end-to-end customers. So we showed you how we create target audience rules. And now what we would potentially want to do is actually creating communication to interact with that particular customer. So back at looking at our demo system over here, and what we're going to actually do is we're going to have a look at, for instance, getting a customer to use a credit card in a more active way. So what we've actually done is we've created an engagement to be able to drive spend over here. We're going to go into that particular engagement, which has obviously been pre-prepared, and we're going to construct a communication that will engage those particular customers. So first off, we have to define who we're going to interact with, and we're going to define those customers using our journey analytics capability from create credit card application to approve to accept offer. So those are the customers we want to target. And specifically, there's a second rule over here, so that they should meet the criteria of being from the last 180 days. And then what we can do right within the Incuba platform is we can send them out a newsletter and actually promote certain products, in this case, an online store, to actually engage with those particular customers. We are able to do that across both the email channel as well as the SMS channel. This particular example has been configured for an email. And then we are able to then preview that particular interaction for those customers to actually send out to that particular base. The end process is then the ability to actually measure interaction with customers and get a sense of how successful that particular set of engagement has been. So very powerful capability. Just to give you a sense of the depth of the capability, we can combine a whole host of rules. So we can have event triggers both from within the system or externally. We can have journey rules. For instance, in this case, customers that have submitted an application online and have submitted a quote and not submitted their documents. And then we can overlay that with single view rules, such as existing customers or customers that are either positive or negatively predisposed towards the brand. So the system is very powerful in that regard. And then what we're able to do is we're able to produce a whole host of different communications across multiple channels. That includes both the email and SMS channel, where we can actually send out those communications all from within the Incuba platform itself. The last thing I want to mention just about interacting is that very often what we'll do is we'll actually provide incentives, and we have a strong capability to actually incentivize customers. So within those communications that I ran through, we're able to send out communication and actually nudge them along. And these can be very powerful just to get customers to go to the next step. The next step might be as simple as making themselves available to have a discussion when we identify, for argument's sake, that they are in fact at risk. So going back to the framework that Margo spoke about, I've run through and showed you how we profile customers, how we analyze and understand customers, and then how we act, respond, engage, and improve. The last area I'd like to talk about is really the more advanced level, and that's where we use prediction, automation, and specifically machine learning to actually nudge customers forward. So if we consider the context of analytics and machine learning, is really what we've spoken about so far is descriptive analytics, basically describing what happened in the past. That evolves one step further when we start using predictive models, using statistical libraries to get a sense of what actually happened over a period of time. And then what we're able to do, and we happen to use Azure machine learning, is we're able to then, using prescriptive analytics, actually nudge customers that meet a certain criteria. So anyone with a level of familiarity with the space of machine learning will recognize this process where really, if you're going to put a machine learning capability in place, you need to first of all collect and organize the data, then you need to normalize the data, then you need to feed the data into the machine learning platform, then you need to do the modeling and the algorithm construction within the machine learning platform, and then use those insights to trigger interactions and monitor effectiveness. Now, the point I'm really trying to make here is that so much of a machine learning approach is centered around the management of the data, and the algorithm itself is pretty small. And that's why the Incuba platform is so well positioned to be able to offer services in this regard. So what we're then able to do is, using that approach, in this particular case, we might have a scenario where we're trying to get a customer to purchase. We can use all of the different variables that give rise to that particular outcome. We can put that into an algorithm. We feed that into the Azure machine learning environment, and then we get a set of instructions that then tells the Incuba platform what to do at different points in order to nudge customers forward. And we can then start using those algorithms to actually define exactly what should be happening for different customers within the end-to-end customer journey. So that really concludes what I wanted to run through today. Hopefully what I've been able to show you is that the Incuba platform really is very powerful. We have a variety of different capabilities. That starts off with Journey Analytics. That progresses all the way and combines with customer experience management. We've got integrated case management capability. We've got engagement marketing directly from within the platform, so we can use the insights that we get from Journey Analytics. We can overlay that from insights from social media. All of that combines to a single view, and ultimately we use text analytics and sentiment analytics to understand the customer from an end-to-end point of view. So in many respects, when we're thinking about the space in which we operate, and really our inspiration for what we do, is this whole idea that, imagine if you had a capability across millions of clients to see who's on and off the journeys, and ultimately who's cheering for your brand. Wouldn't that be a very powerful game changer? And we think to a large extent that we very much we are there, and we're seeing that kind of success within the market. And that really is what the Incuba platform is about. So what we're going to do now is we are going to progress to some Q&A. Anthony has been collecting some questions from our participants, and we'll be happy to answer those. If you have any further questions, please feel free to make those available online, and we'll do our best to be able to answer those questions.
Hi everyone, this is Anthony here. I'm the admin on this webinar. I'd just like to remind you something that Margaret mentioned in the beginning, that there is a handout available through this application. So if you have a look at the webinar application, there should be a little handout section where you can go and grab the PDF, and the PDF is called The Science of Retention. That's the handout that we promised you. Thank you to those of you who have submitted some questions. I've got some great questions here. I'm going to put them on the table for the panelists. The first question, thank you John for this one. We've recently completed a journey mapping exercise, and we have a far better understanding of our customers' experiences. This sounds like something different. Is it really necessary?
So I think, certainly the process of customer journey mapping that often is done in terms of graphical depiction of a customer journey is a very good starting point. The challenge obviously is that typically what the next question should be is, and how does that relate to the real world? In many respects, those customer journey mapping exercises are done within boardrooms. They're based on the information and insights of the employees within the organization. What we've seen is that by having a data-driven approach, you can be far more objective about the end-to-end customer journey. So we'd use that first customer journey mapping exercise as an input to the platform, but we believe that it is absolutely vital that we collect additional insights and overlay the data on those customer journeys to get a real world view. Also, the practicality of different customers, different segments, different customer attributes also comes to the fore in terms of using a platform such as Incuba to get a far richer view of what's going on. And then when you're starting to operate at scale, you certainly need the automation capabilities of a platform to be able to interact with customers. Clearly, a static representation of a customer journey that arises out of a consulting exercise is not going to allow you to do that. So it's a great start. We just believe that you have to go further than that to actually get true business benefit. And ultimately, you need to migrate into a data-centric view of the world.
We have a number of different applications in the business: CRM, marketing automation, and some legacy systems. Customer data is spread across all of them. won't something like this create further complexity?
So I think one of the things that we've realized is that customers have a significant challenge, corporates have a significant challenge in understanding customers migrating across multiple channels. And really with that in mind, and I've spent a lot of time going through this during the demo, we've actually got a very strong integration kit. And that integration kit allows us to bring in diverse data from multiple different systems and integrate that data. So the Incuba platform is ideally positioned to be able to take in data from multiple different sources. There is a relatively simple graphical user interface that allows us to do the mapping of the data from the external system into the Incuba platform, and then to represent all of those different channels and all of those systems. That allows us to pull together and draw up the customer journey map that I showed you a little bit earlier. So yes, multiple systems obviously is a complexity that has to be dealt with. We believe with the work that we've done with the integration kit, and because of the nature and architecture of the solution, and the enablement through the single view, that we really can help you bring together diverse pieces of data to get that single view of the customer as the customer is interacting across multiple channels and multiple systems.
And I think to add to that, what you're doing is you're taking the data that already exists today and you are getting a whole lot more value out of that data. And as I mentioned, with a journey approach, the data doesn't have to be 100% complete. The tools and technologies do the work in terms of linking that data and bringing customer profiles together so that you can get that single view of all customer interactions.
One more question, and then Margot, I think you can wrap up for us. The final question is, we have a VOC tool for customer surveys. Isn't that enough?
Well, so I'll answer that to start off with, and I think I mean VOC programs and customer feedback management programs are really, really, really important and effective in terms of understanding what's going on from an operational perspective and feeding up. But what VOC programs don't do is that they don't give you a complete view of the customer. So it's always going to be a sample of feedback, and it's an important sample of feedback because you've got an opportunity to resolve that feedback. And really what we see is a VOC program feeding into your journey management program. It's definitely one of the key sort of attitudinal data sources of customers. And then really how you take your VOC programs to the next level is with a journey management approach that then allows you to get a complete view of the customer journey with the VOC overlays, sentiment and satisfaction, and then have those interventions and action against the actual customer journey, which is how you would orchestrate those experiences.
I think also to build on what Margot said, is a key capability of the Incuba platform is that we can ingest your existing voice of customer data. So if you have been running a VOC program and you've collected data over a period of time, that could be a good starting point for actually doing a customer journey mapping exercise. So we can build on the work that you've done. So we have both the capability to actually collect those insights within the Incuba platform. Alternatively, if you've been running a program like that for a while, what we're able to do is ingest that data, bring it in into the Incuba platform, and use that as a starting point of understanding the end-to-end customer journey. As Margot says, ultimately, that only represents a subset of feedback from customers, because not every single customer is actually going to be answering your survey questions. And when then combined with transactional data, we get far more comprehensive solution for actually managing customers that are potentially at risk.
Great, yes. So I just think a big thank you from us at Incuba for joining this webinar. We are excited and passionate about this topic and really believe that a journey management approach is a fundamentally different way and a much quicker way to getting results in terms of customer retention. So thank you for your time. I'd love to carry on the conversation with you. So if you are interested in following up discussion, please let's chat after the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and as Margaret says, we'd very much like the opportunity to interact with you further.